Today, happy birthday, Wikipedia. Can you guess how old they are?
Then Amazon's best kept secret and why it matters.
And yup, it's CES time. Virtual this year, but so many gadgets.
I'm Alexis Scordato, and this is Future Forward.
I am Stephen Rosenbaum. Let us launch. Hey, Alexa.
Hey, Steve. Fresh new opening. I love it.
You know, happy last pod ever with Donald Trump as president.
Hooray.
Hooray. But by the way, I love the new opening, but somebody who saw it last week said that because of the way the angle works, it makes my head look like a mushroom.
I don't think so.
And I was like, okay. It actually felt, as I looked at it again, I was like, yeah, a little bit like maybe Lost in Space.
Or just like a big light bulb because you're full of ideas.
There you go. I'm a big light bulb. And so we've got 3 chapters today. We're going to do Wikipedia for a bit. We're going to talk about Wikipedia. Then we are going to jump into Amazon and returns and how that's changed shopping. And then we are going to do a little bit of CES just because how can you not do CES? Because it's CES time. So should we just start with Amazon?
Oh, start with Amazon? Okay, sure.
No. Sorry. Start with Wikipedia. I got confused.
It's okay.
Let's start with Wikipedia. So
okay.
First of all,
so how old is Wikipedia?
20 years old.
Wow.
And I guess my immediate reaction to that number is so much of what I loved about the web 20 years ago has gotten broken or fucked with or made private or not, and Wikipedia has soldiered on in remarkable ways. Internally, it's evolved, but incredibly trustworthy and quite communal.
So would you say you were an early adopter of Wikipedia? Like, were you using it 20 years ago or not until it sort of became more of a mainstay on the web?
No, I think I was early. How could you not be? I mean, and I remember the politics of it early on where, my kids' teachers were like, well, you shouldn't necessarily use Wikipedia. It's not like like there was, is it trustworthy? There was a little bit of that. But I think fairly quickly it became, because it exposed all of the linkage and all of the sourcing, and it was communally edited, and you could go back and look at the version history. I think we as a family trusted it, as a source pretty early on.
Yeah.
I mean, my Wikipedia page has gone through a bunch of arm wrestles as different editors have had their way with it over the years.
Mm-hmm. So when did you know that you got a Wikipedia page? Did you make it?
No, I didn't make it. Someone made it, and it was fairly comprehensive early on.
You just Googled yourself, and you were like, "Oh, I'm on Wikipedia."
Yeah, and there was a phrase early on where I was called the forefather of user-generated content, and that didn't come from me. And that became kind of a legacy tag for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then a bunch of years ago, there was a debate about that in the comments. And some people said there were other people, went round and round. And I think I haven't checked in a while. It may now not be part of my bio. But
filmmaker, founder, author, there's
dog
a lot
owner,
of other stuff in there.
Upper West Sider, yeah. So part of why we got into this Wikipedia conversation is because the Media Lab hosted a conversation with the CEO and with NPR's Manoush Zomorodi to talk about the 20-year birthday. And it was fantastic, fascinating and interesting and charming. And there were just a couple of quotes I wrote down that I was going to read to you from it. What's beautiful about Wikipedia is that it reflects our human biases in the same really problematic ways, but it also reflects our aspirations for what we can do better. And that was Catherine Mahar's quote. And then the other quote from her that there were lots I really liked, but it's not just what's known, it's actually what's not known that reveals a lot about society. She's super. Do you know her at all?
I don't.
Oh my God, she's super smart. Here, while we're chatting, I'll just put up a video of her. I'll turn the sound down because we don't need. She's super, super smart, amazing, and really thoughtful about Wikipedia. And I mean, it's a bit of a rough and tumble family of voices, right? It's not a, there are battles that go on. And one of the things she talked about, on the interview, which aired on Friday, was that they were very, very early on in COVID and trying to get the most accurate information out there and trying to, as a community, beat down fake information, and you can imagine, given how fast that information was changing, that was no easy task.
Yeah.
And as the scientific community debated things about COVID, Wikipedia did as well.
So was there anything about the interviews that revealed, I don't know, a major shift in policy? Because that headline from the Washington Post that identifies Wikipedia as one of the safest places on the web, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and a huge reason is because it's a moderated space on the web, but the moderation comes with a whole set of policies. Did they talk about that a lot?
Not specifically. I mean, they talked about the scale of it. I mean, it's not really moderated as much as it's, there is, I mean, just to be clear, you don't just get to go, I'm a Wikipedia editor, right? There's seniority within that community of Wikipedians, as they're known.
Right.
Well, here, maybe the best way to explore that is to look at this article, which is about the Wikipedia community struggling to find the right words for what was happening in the Capitol last week. I find this fascinating because I don't know about you, but I went through this. Is it a mob? Is it a protest? Is it a army? What are these people? And what do you like that whole, and that you could feel the mainstream media struggling with the right label.
I agree with what you said last week, which is there are Trump terrorists. I think there are a lot of people who voted for Trump who I would not label as terrorists, but the people who stormed the Capitol committed an act of sedition and domestic terrorism.
Well, if you've watched the people that have been arrested so far, I think it's about 300 arrests so far. They've been very careful. They've been charged with, breaking and entering. They've been charged with being in a secure location, fairly low-level crimes, right? Presumably, the federal government, moving as fast as it can, given its somewhat limp nature, is trying, like, those aren't going to be the charge. There will be more charges added.
Yep.
NPR,
the most literal, practical grievances articulated, right? So that they can actually jail people.
On the media had fascinating story about walkie-talkie and about recordings of audio conversations about the planning of the attacks, which I'd never heard before. That was on NPR on the media yesterday. Quite chilling, in fact, quite terrifying. When you hear this, I mean, these are in public. These are not private encrypted conversations. They're on this app called Walkie-Talkie.
Right. And their CEO refused to, I think, ban people.
Yep. But back to Wikipedia, because that's really where we want to go.
Place.
Yeah. I really like this article from Fast Company because you get to understand the complexities within the Wikipedian community about how consensus is formed and language is formed.
I think it's a good demonstration of, I mean, Wikipedia operates quickly, right? Like someone passes away, and next thing you know, that person's Wikipedia page is updated almost instantaneously. But that said, there's this huge counterweight with deliberation and getting things right and factual and being incredibly thoughtful and discerning about every single word that appears on an entry. Where else can we say that? We can't edit our tweets. People just post things thoughtlessly in other places. Wikipedia is sort of alone in that camp.
Some number of years ago, one of my kids got interested in Wikipedia, and we ended up going to one of their events in New York, one of the Wikipedian gatherings. It's a public event, and it was fascinating. We really enjoyed it. Enjoyed meeting people. Enjoyed hearing the discussion. And it might have actually been a birthday party. Now that I think about it, it might have been like it was maybe I went to the Wikipedia 10th birthday party in New York. I don't remember. In any case, if you find yourself with, some spare cash at the end of this podcast and you're looking to do something good, a donation to Wikipedia is a wonderful idea. Here, somewhere at the end of this video is the slide for the donation. I'll just jump way over to there. I don't exactly remember.
If you go to Wikipedia, sometimes you can't miss it. The Jimmy Bell's annual plea to support Wikipedia. But
there we go. It's donate.wikimedia.org. And, this is, in the world in which many of the conversation platforms that we now take for granted are private and advertiser funded, I think that's one of the questions that Catherine talks about is, how do they feel about not being advertiser funded? And she says, some of the people that were West Coast VCs would have urged them to pick up advertising, and they made a decision not to. So, if you got $10, I'd say throwing it at Wikimedia would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yay.
I'm going to give one life hack pro tip. This is from my friend Kevin. He's this brilliant developer. He's so well versed on a whole series of random factoids. You definitely want him on your trivia team. And one of his secrets to gaining knowledge is that every day he reads one Wikipedia entry.
How does he pick it?
Some of it is like interest. Some of it is he read something and then it references like a fact or a person. And so I think he just like bookmarks it and then tackles it the next day.
I love this idea. I think we should set up a Twitter handle called random Wikipedia fact of the day.
Yeah.
Just generate it randomly and post. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, some people can't commit to reading a book. Sometimes long form is just too hard to get into, but a Wikipedia article is a good bite-sized way to ingest a meaty topic.
I think that's great. All right, so moving on. Chapter 2 of this particular pod has to do with Amazon, and in particular, Amazon returns. So I don't know if the timing of this is right or not, but I credit Amazon returns with Tony Hsieh, because Zappos, I remember Tony telling me early on that they had this whole, no guilt, order 5 pairs of shoes and return 4. And I felt at the time I was uncomfortable with that. It seemed like they were I thought it was like a marketing gimmick. Like maybe you'll keep 3, but it wasn't. And Tony was, God bless him, extraordinary human being, really wanted, try on and, try before you buy and, experiment, take some risks with shoes, something you might not like. He really wanted the return to be incredibly fluid and free. And I went from finding that objectionable to now it's I would say a pretty significant way that I use Amazon.
So I am not a big returner. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but basically what this article is highlighting is that Amazon, Target, Walmart, they're they're willing to let consumers keep the merchandise that they want to return because it, I guess, lowers overall overhead friction. It increases customer happiness overall. And when you think about the cost for returns and shipping handling fees, it allows, it's good for the merchants also. And now, of course, my Amazon is going off in the background.
I heard that. But what's interesting, at least it might not be this article, but one of the ones I read, they do it with AI. So they're looking at a bunch of different things, which is how small is what is the, how, if it's a tiny little thing or a big expensive thing. They also are checking your purchase versus return history. So like they can, like, if it seems like you're misusing the return policy or misusing the we'll let you keep it for free policy, they won't allow it. That being said, as a customer, I feel a little uncomfortable about that, because if I decide something doesn't fit or I don't want it, it isn't my intention to scam either the reseller or the seller, and I really don't want it in my house, and I don't want to throw it in the garbage.
This is where I would love more transparency. Like every single time I see, oh, we use an algorithm, AI, whatever, it's like, just give me the quick and dirty version of what you care about. Because say you're shopping online and you're like in between sizes. Am I a size 6? Am I a size 8? If my default purchase history is to order the 2 sizes and then return the better fitting one, is the algorithm seeing that as abusing the platform, or is it an acceptable behavior for me as a shopper?
Yeah, it's a good question. And if you wanted to try an experiment, you could go and mistreat Amazon and see at what point it flags you. You could order 100 things. You could order 100 boxes of cookies and then return them one by one and see at what point. And by the way, I don't know if for those of you who are listeners who are not experienced Amazon returners, depending on why you say you're returning something, it will either charge you for the return shipping or give you a free alternative. So and it's pretty, if you say I just don't want it anymore, it will charge you $8 to return it. If you say it came in damaged, or the color was wrong, or the web description was inaccurate, it will give you a free option.
Yep.
And it doesn't seem to punish you, at least now, if you go down one rabbit hole and end up with an $8 return charge. You can just back out and go in again, and it'll go, okay, now it's free.
Have you ever returned anything that because it went on sale,
the price
and then you
change,
wanted to get it cheaper?
I've never tried that.
Okay.
I mean, here's how.
That's like a big abuse, maybe.
No, I mean, I think that this is, if you were programming the AI, these would be the questions you'd ask. And theoretically, someone who's bargain hunting and trying to get the price. I've never had Amazon say you can keep it and we'll match the price.
Yeah. I mean, this is where this Atlantic article is fascinating, because I've never heard the reverse supply chain phrase before, but it is interesting to think about, okay, what happens in reverse when the customer is then sending something back?
Yeah, so this is an article in the Atlantic. We'll put the link in the show notes. When Amazon returns go to be resold by hustlers is the headline. And this is a 2019 article. And it says, welcome to the abyss of the reverse supply chain where hope springs eternal. I mean, I try to be I think I'm a good citizen in this world. When I get things from Amazon, I keep the box, I keep the packaging, I make sure all the little bits go back in, the little packet with the screws or the extension cable or whatever the elements are. That being said, I do, I guess, worry occasionally for a moment that it doesn't really matter how carefully I pack it up. It's the likely, and this is probably true of any place you return things, right? It's no different at Best Buy or Home Depot or wherever. Like someone has to look at that thing, determine that it can be resold, seal it back up, and then put it in some kind of a lightly used return resell chain.
Yeah. So we often talk about how algorithms go wrong on this show. I'm curious, Steve, not to put you on the spot. What do you think is the worst possible scenario where Amazon's shopping algorithm really hurts the platform?
You're not putting me on the spot. Well, all right. As a user, I'm putting new kitchen cabinets in, and as much as I try and be a good consumer and measure and make sure I'm getting the right hand, like at the end of the day, there are certain kinds of things that you really just need to hold. Like, for example, my kitchen has some brushed aluminum shelving, and it's almost impossible using the Amazon website to know if the colors match.
Yeah.
Brushed aluminum,
sometimes you don't see it, like, and touch it to know what it is.
So, and the last thing I want to do is buy 35, cabinet door handles and then have them all show up and be like, oh my God, that looks horrific.
Right.
So what I've done is I picked 3 or 4 that seemed right. I've ordered them all. They're all coming as one-offs, and I will keep one and order more and return the other 2.
So it's like a sample. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's no different than lots of things you order samples. But I will say
home try on. Yeah.
But I guess the thing that I don't know the answer to, and that they're not transparent about, is like here's what I don't want as a citizen of the planet. I don't want to spend the money to have a thing boxed and shipped to me, try it, box it and ship it back, and then have it go to a landfill. Like, I wish I could be a little bit more cognizant of safe, good global citizen shopping, so that if there are things that could be easily returned and resold, I'd rather know what they are rather than kind of cavalierly, to your point earlier about trying on sizes, clothing. That's what do you do when you go to a store? You try on sizes, like,
right.
And different companies use sizing differently, and different things fit differently. And no one wants to keep a pair of pants or a pair of shoes that don't fit.
Yep. Yeah. I think what worries me is the thought of potentially having a eBay-like consumer and seller rating on the platform, and that not being something I can control.
You mean invisibly?
No, like, I don't, maybe invisibly or visibly, but like the idea of if I do something that the algorithm doesn't like, and now all of a sudden my consumer buyer rating goes from like 100 to like 92, and then somehow the seller ratings, like maybe I start to see different promotions, or I don't have access to certain products because of that.
Well, if anyone who's listening to the pod knows the answer to this and works at Amazon and wants to leave us an answer anonymously, my presumption is you already have a customer rating at Amazon.
Right. It's like Uber and Lyft, right?
Right. Yeah. By the way, this whole conversation starts to feel a little like it has an episode of Black Mirror baked into it.
Right. We're all being rated by something.
Right. I believe optimistically that my Amazon rating is on a scale of 1 to 10, teetering near an 11. I've been a customer for a really long time. I don't return, relative to the amount of money I spend with them, I return very little. I will tell you that when I've ended up with an Amazon rep on the phone or on chat about something, either the charge or something, which happens maybe once a year, twice a year, they instantaneously credit me back whenever I want credit back.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to chapter 3, which will be fun. Let's talk about CES.
This is your lane, Steve. You are like the CES veteran. I can't wait to hear what you think.
So let's just start by being unbelievably brutally honest. I mean, by any objective measure, CES sucks.
In
Ve-
person and digital?
no, in person. In person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Vegas sucks. The size of the show sucks. The cost of the hotel rooms suck. My famous CES story is a million gazillion years ago when I went for the very first time. I wanted to look very snappy because I was going to this big show and for my company. And so the day before CES, I bought a new pair of shoes. On my short list of stupidest things I've ever done in my life, that's in my top 5.
Okay.
Because it hurt so bad for so long. My feet hurt literally from the moment I landed until and you hear stories about, buckets of salt water and foot massages. And I mean, it's just, you can't imagine. And every meeting you have is 3 football fields in the opposite direction, no matter how you try and schedule it, unless you're a big time vendor, in which case people come to you. But
Yep.
I
promise you I can imagine, because most women experience this regularly wearing heels. So
yeah. In this particular case, I wasn't wearing heels. I was wearing flats, but still unbelievable. So theoretically, a virtual CES should be at the least not that. The CES is really it's about 12 shows, but there's 2 that matter to us. One is the big electronics companies, kind of like starting gun of what they're going to do in the year ahead. The Panasonics, the Sonys, the LGs. And then the other is this kind of off to the side, quirky, unusual, little gizmo-y stuff, some of which will break out. And I will tell you this, unlike press releases or videos, generally speaking, the thing about going to CES is you can pretty quickly tell what's vaporware. Like somebody built a model of something in a lab and they put it in a plexiglass box and they're announcing it, but you can't touch it or you can't use it. Like bullshit detectors tend to go off. And so a virtual CES, that goes away. You don't get to, put the thing in your hand and feel whether it's been manufactured or just it's a prototype. That being said, this year in particular, there were a couple of trends that I would say are worth watching for. A lot of interesting robot stuff, like starting to feel like maybe this is the year.
Are there cute robots? Because you're always a curator of cute. Cute.
There were cute robots, yes. And I do think air taxi, to me, it's a race to see whether driverless cars fill the city streets or whether air taxis always have that slightly Jetson, here's George Jetson, boop, 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 air taxis, yay. But, you could imagine them, so the Cadillac E-Volt air taxi was the one that got a lot of press. This is a GM, EV company. Maybe that would be cool.
I think my vote's air taxi, because I feel like Amazon's going to have the drones operational by next Christmas. Like we are going to see lots of flying things in the air by December 2021. And once we have an understanding of air traffic in that context, it'll pave the way for this. Like Amazon will have delivery people in these air taxis.
So just play this out for a moment, because this could be fun. So I live in, a high rise in New York. I could imagine a little unit that I hang outside my window that just has a landing pad. And then I say to Amazon, my landing pad is number 12374, some code. You can drop any box up to this amount of weight here, and it will come and fly over and drop it and say, it's on your landing pad. The problem is the next thing that will come along will be, pirates with their own, little air pirates, and they will come by and go, whoa, look, we see there's something on Steve's landing pad. Let's go grab it. So there'll be like a battle between the Amazon air taxi or air delivery and the pirate, drone.
I mean, we kind of get that already with porches, right?
I don't have a porch. I don't know what that word means.
Yeah, that's why the Amazon Ring is used a lot, because it videotapes people on your porch.
Madness. All right. So here's the word that came out of CES that I find the most puzzling. Keeping in mind that these things, to get something to CES, if it's a piece of hardware, you have to start designing it a year ago, and then you have to make the prototype. You have to get ready, and once you get to CES, the phone's going to ring, and people are going to want to order the damn thing. So the supply chain has to be built. The number of things that were announced as touchless this and touchless that. I mean, here, there was a. I thought I had one pulled up. Touchless toilet.
Yep.
Did I miss the news story, or has there never been a news story about any COVID disease spread via touch?
No, it's like it was debunked fairly early.
Right. So we went out to a restaurant last night, and there's no menu. It's touchless. You have to scan a code, and then there's no payment. It's all touchless. You have to take your phone, and so there's this whole universe of touchless stuff that's come up, that's grown up around fear of COVID, that I think, here's alarm.com touchless video doorbell. Note to manufacturers, maybe there isn't actually fear of touch.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's mostly airborne. And I guess it's the idea that if someone coughs, you touch the thing, and then you touch your eye or put your hand in your mouth, that you would get it.
Yeah. No. That is exactly the concern. But that being said, I wear gloves out. I wear gloves to touch the elevator button. I'm quite diligent about that, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so lots out of CES. Nothing. I wanted to see if there's anything I could highlight that I think is like a big brand new thing. I mean,
more robots.
What was who did the kitchen where you can change the colors of all your appliances, the fronts of all your appliances? Samsung, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm redoing my kitchen with LCD fronts.
But it's actually interesting though. I wonder if there's more like home updates, like overall, just because people are spending more time at home and they're investing in their homes.
So I will tell you that the contractors that do home renovation and repair have been unbelievably busy.
You can't get refrigerators. My grandma has been trying to get a refrigerator for months. You can't install pools, and you can't fix fireplaces. Those are like 3 things that I've encountered that I can't do right now.
With that, we'd love to hear from you. If you went to CES and you saw cool things that we didn't know about, you can tweet us. I'm at Magnify Media, and Alexa is at Alexa.
I'm going to start tweeting like when Biden is president. I have been off Twitter during the Trump presidency in 2020.
By the way, it'll be interesting to see how many people will change some piece of behavior as a celebration of the inauguration. I have something secret planned. I can't tell you what it is, but when we come back next week, I will share it with the world. Ooh. I have an inauguration change of behavior that I can't tell you about.
Can't wait to hear.
With that, we are out of time. We will see you all again next week. Bye-bye.